The plains slept under a shroud of snow, endless and still, as if the world had forgotten how to move. A single rider crossed that silence. Matto, a cowboy of 30 winters, his breath rising like ghosts in the cold air. The saddle creaked beneath him, and the wind hissed around his coat, whispering the name of the woman he had lost. He had buried her a year ago. Since then wealth meant nothing. The ranch that once rang with laughter now stood like a mausoleum. Every door creaked with memory. Every wall echoed her voice. He had become a shadow haunting his own land. That evening, as dusk thickened and the wind turned sharp, he saw it, a flicker of firelight far off among the drifts. He turned his horse toward it, drawn not by curiosity but by a hunger for any sign of life. The fire burned in a shallow hollow, guarded by a woman who looked carved from the earth itself. Her hair spilled black and straight to her waist, her skin glowed bronze in the flame's reflection. She did not flinch as he approached, she only lifted her eyes, steady and calm. He stopped at the edge of her warmth. "Evening," he said, his voice rough as gravel. "Mind if I rest by your fire a while?" "Fire is for all who need warmth," she replied, her tone soft, almost wind-like. He dismounted slowly, feeling the stiffness of long loneliness in his bones. The horse snorted steam and settled. He sat, holding his hands toward the blaze. They shared silence, the kind that tests two souls before granting peace. After a while, she passed him a strip of roasted rabbit. He took it without a word, tasting salt, smoke and something like kindness. "What do they call you?" he asked. "Najoni," she said. "It means beautiful." The name lingered in the air like incense. He nodded. "I once knew the word. My wife spoke it when the wind blew gentle." Her gaze softened. "She is gone?" He swallowed. "A year come January." For a long time neither spoke. The fire cracked and shifted. The snow hissed as it met the heat. Finally he said, almost to the flames, "You ever get tired of being alone?" She tilted her head, considering. "Alone is safer than being where you're not wanted." He looked up, meeting her eyes. Something in her voice, a bruise too old to show, mirrored his own hollow places. The wind howled then, scattering snow across their small island of warmth. The cold crept close again, pressing him toward words he did not fully understand. "Would you?" he began, then stopped, ashamed. She watched him quietly. He tried again. "Would you act as my wife tonight?" Her brows lifted slightly, not in fear but curiosity. "Not that way," he said quickly. "I don't seek your body. Just someone to sit beside till morning. Someone breathing near, so the silence doesn't win." The night held its breath. Najoni studied him with eyes older than her years. Then she nodded once. "I can do that." They lay near the fire, not touching, just sharing warmth. He listened to her breathing, steady as snowfall, until sleep came. For the first time in months, his dreams were empty, and peace, quiet and pure, filled the space instead. When he woke, dawn glimmered silver on the snow. Najoni was already up, feeding the fire, humming a tune that sounded like prayer. "You stayed," he murmured. "You asked," she said simply. He smiled, faint but real. "Come with me to my ranch. There's food, work, shelter. You shouldn't wander this country alone." She hesitated, watching the horizon as if weighing all its distances. "You don't know me." "I know loneliness," he said. "And I know you understand it too." Something in his tone broke her resistance. She nodded. "Then I'll come, till the snow melts." They rode together through the quiet morning, two figures stitched against the white world. At the ranch, the house stood silent, its windows rimed with frost. She dismounted and touched the rail, her fingers reading the place like a memory. "This land mourns," she said. "So do I," he whispered. That winter stretched slow but gentle. Najoni cooked by the hearth, mended torn reins, and sang in a tongue the walls seemed to remember. Matto repaired fences, fetched wood, and found himself listening for her footsteps instead of ghosts. The townsfolk whispered, the rich widower had brought home a native woman. But Matto didn't care. He had already lost everything that mattered once. No one could shame him now. As weeks turned, something tender grew between them, quiet as roots beneath frozen soil. She laughed sometimes, soft and sudden, like a bird startled into flight. He learned to laugh back. One evening, as the light faded to blue, he told her, "You've brought warmth back to this house." She looked up from the stew she stirred. "You gave me a place where the wind doesn't hurt." Their eyes met, and the silence that followed was no longer lonely. Spring came in shy colors. Snow melted into silver streams, and the land breathed again. On a soft April morning, Matto took her hand and said, "I once asked you to pretend." Let me ask again, for real this time. Najoni stared at him, heart trembling between fear and wonder. You would marry me? In truth and in name, he said. If you'll have me. Tears welled but did not fall. I'll have you, she whispered. The ceremony was small. Snow fell again that day as if winter wanted to bless what spring had begun. The priest spoke gently, and when he asked if Maddo took this woman, his answer came steady as the land itself. When their hands joined, his rough palm met her delicate one, and between them lay every sorrow the world had given, turned into something holy. That night as they lit the hearth he said, I once asked for one night. Now I want every night that ever comes. And she smiled, her voice like wind through pines. Then we are the storm and the calm both. 4 months afterward, the ranch was alive again. Fields greened. Laughter returned. But peace is never left untested. One summer evening a rider arrived, an old ranch hand named Boone, once loyal, now bitter. He dismounted, eyes sharp with jealousy. So it's true, he sneered. The widower married an Indian girl. Makes for fine gossip in town. Maddo's jaw tightened. You've had your say. Leave it. Boone laughed. She's got you bewitched, Maddo? You think folks'll still respect you? You've thrown away your bloodline for a campfire wife. Before Maddo could move, Najoni appeared in the doorway. She heard every word. Her face went still, the color draining like the last light at dusk. Boone spat in the snow and rode off, his laughter fading. She turned toward Maddo, eyes shining but dry. He speaks what others think. Maybe he's right. He reached for her. He's nothing but rot. Don't let his poison near your heart. But it will stain yours, she said softly. You'll lose standing among your kind. I've already lost more than standing, he said, his voice breaking. You are the only thing that made me alive again. For a long moment, neither moved. Then she stepped into his arms, and the air seemed to forgive the world a little. Autumn came with its long shadows and restless winds. One night, a storm unlike any other rolled from the mountains, a blizzard fierce and sudden. The cattle panicked in the ravine, and before Najoni could stop him, Maddo mounted his horse and rode into the white roar. Hours passed. The wind screamed. When he did not return, she followed. The storm tore at her face, blinding her, but she pressed on, calling his name into the night. She found him at last, trapped beneath a fallen branch, half buried in snow, his horse gone. She freed him with bleeding hands, dragging him toward the dim outline of a hunter's cabin. Inside, she lit a fire with trembling fingers, wrapped him in her cloak, and held him close until his shivers eased. When his eyes opened, weak but aware, he saw her tears for the first time. You should have stayed safe, he whispered. There is no safe without you, she said. He tried to speak, but she pressed a hand to his lips. Rest. Let the storm do its worst. We have each other. Outside, the blizzard raged on, but inside the tiny cabin, warmth grew between them, fierce, defiant, alive. By morning the world was still. The storm had passed, leaving the land blank and reborn. They stepped outside, hand in hand, into a silence so deep it felt sacred. Years would pass and the snow would fall again each winter, soft as blessing. Children's laughter would echo across the ranch, mingling with the low hum of Najoni's songs. Maddo would sit by the hearth, silver in his beard, his eyes still carrying that first night's fire. Sometimes, when the wind sighed across the plains, he'd turn to her and smile. Do you remember the night I asked you to act as my wife? She'd laugh gently. And I've been acting ever since, the part of a woman too happy for words. He'd take her hand, rough against delicate, and whisper, no act ever felt more true. And beyond their window the snow would begin to fall again, slow, endless, forgiving, as if the world had learned their kind of love.